is a road crossing permit down in Rose Valley for livestock. It's a water line. They just come in and got it last week, so it'll be forward.
Okay. You okay with this, Clay?
Sure.
Todd?
Yep.
I make a motion that we approve county permit number 11102-021, road crossing permit.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We issued a permit of 201, no. No, what happened here? 11102-021. That's all backwards.
That makes sense now, after you told me why you did that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's usually the other way around.
2021.
2021.
I've done a multitude of
Trying to
weddings.
keep you on your toes.
It really got me confused.
I'd like to go into executive session for non-elected. What time do we have, Brett?
9.
I guess we can come out early. I make a motion that we go into executive session for 20 minutes to discuss non-elected personnel, including Phil, Anita, and the commissioners.
Second.
Then move second, we go into executive session for non-elected personnel for 20 minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. No.
Hot
You want to
seat.
stand?
Have a
You
seat.
sit.
I have a
So you
seat.
can sit.
Okay. I'm used to
We're not gonna
standing- I'm used to
bind-
standing and speaking, so.
We're gonna go put a blindfold on you and make you stand.
All right, well, I was just gonna mention a few of the things that might come up in the legislature this year, I guess, if that's all right, and then you can ask me the questions you want, but, you know, we're looking at having a special session possibly to respond to some of these vaccine mandates, you know, in particular, President Biden's vaccine mandate, and, you know, there was an effort to have a special session, and that fell short, and there weren't very many votes for it, but this time the House and Senate leadership are actually behind it, which means it'll be more likely to actually happen. It takes 2/3 of the legislators to have a special session, unless Governor Kelly were actually going to call it. But if she doesn't call it, then you have to get 2/3, and there's about 2/3 majority Republicans, and so you have to get just about all the Republicans to sign off on that in order to have the special session. And if we have a special session, they're just looking at basically 2 bills possibly to pass. One is to make sure that people who are fired or quit due to, you know, not being vaccinated and not wanting to take the vaccine, that they can receive unemployment benefits. Because right now it's not real clear in Kansas law whether they could actually be entitled to receive unemployment benefits. So we just basically, they're looking to make sure that, to make it clear that they would receive unemployment benefits if they were to be fired or had to quit due to choosing to not receive the vaccine. And then the other bill would be to expand religious exemptions or medical exemptions, because right now under current law, I guess there are those exemptions, but it just isn't really being enforced. And so I guess they're just looking to pass a bill to expand those exemptions and make sure that businesses and, you know, employers actually recognize those exemptions. And so right now those are the 2 items that they're looking at passing in a special session, but it still remains to be seen whether they'll actually have the support, you know, to be able to have the special session. If we have it, it'll be on November the 22nd. They're just looking at 1 day. It's probably not going to be a long, drawn-out thing, you know, and some people, you know, express concerns about the cost of it, but it's looking like it'll just be on 1 day if we have it, and so it won't end up being very expensive or anything, since it'll just be a 1 day thing. And so, but that's one of the main things that's coming up. And then other than vaccine mandates, some of the other things that I've heard that that might come up might be critical race theory and a bill to prevent that from being taught in public schools. And, you know, that was a big issue in the Virginia governor's race, and one of the main reasons why Youngkin, the Republican, won that race. And so it'll probably be something that comes before the legislature, because I've heard there's a couple different bills that might come up on that issue. And, you know, people say that, well, critical race theory isn't taught in schools, but then other people say, well, it is taught, but it just isn't called that. And so,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta just look at the wording of the bills, I guess, that come up, and, I do support the concept of, not having that taught in schools, but you gotta look at the details of the bill and how it's written and make sure it's written correctly and everything, but, that's probably one thing that'll come before the legislature this year. Another thing that,
Hold on just a second, Brett. The one thing that concerns me about the state stepping in and saying that, wanting to make some kind of ruling that says that you can't teach critical race theory. I don't know how much guidance like St. John School District comes down from the state or from the federal organizations that say you need to teach that. The way I've kind of understood, they'll set, the guidelines as far as what you need to be able to graduate. But I think what you teach in the school comes from your administration and your local school board. And what concerns me is I don't think critical race theory should be set or taught in school, but I don't like the idea of the state coming in and telling the schools they can't do it, because then that kind of sets a precedence to where 15 years down the line, if you get a swing in the state as far as one way or the other, it might open it up to where they can come in and say, and use that for precedent, well, we want you to teach this.
right?
Right now it's a good idea, but is it going to come back and bite us in 15 or 20 years?
Yeah, well, I think there probably are some state standards as far as what has to be taught and what can't be taught. And so, it's not all, local, but, a lot of it's local, but there are some state standards as well. But, it's kind of like I said, I'll just have to look at the details of the bill and, how it's written and everything. And I'll just have to.
But you understand what my concern is?
Yeah, the local control. Yeah, I understand your concern, but I do have a lot of people though that have emailed me, saying that they oppose critical race theory and they want something done about it. And so, it is a popular item, among conservatives and Republicans right now to want to, do something about that and ban it. But, it's kind of, the devil is in the details, and you have to just look at how the bill is worded if it comes up, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might tell them about what showed up in Olathe.
Well, in addition to the critical race areas, you just have, these liberal schools in northeast Kansas that are kind of pushing like a transgender, stuff on kids. And, there was a Olathe School District, a teacher who gave out a worksheet to kids, basically having them fill out what they think their gender is. Do you think you're a boy or girl, or, what gender are you attracted to? And,
Yeah.
and then the administration came out and said, well, we didn't authorize this, the teacher just did it on there. But it could just be because they got caught, they had to say that. But, that is a concern. And, I guess in my opinion, I don't necessarily think a local school board should be allowed to teach something like that. I do think that should be banned at the state level, that we shouldn't have school districts pushing that on kids, because I don't think that's appropriate to be taught in schools, and they just need to stick to math, reading, science, shop class, and, things like that, and not be involved in liberal social engineering and that type of thing.
Yeah.
One of the parents that his son brought that home from school happened to be a state representative.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that should be taught in school. But my main concern is if the state steps in, then it could open it up.
But you ought to read that letter. It was just unbelievable that would happen in Kansas. But
Yeah.
There's been proposals to either end or reduce the sales tax on food. It probably won't be realistic to end it, but maybe at least reduce it, because we have one of the highest sales tax rates on food in the whole country. And 38 states don't tax it at all.
Mm-hmm.
We tax it at, when you include the local taxes, it can be as high as 10% tax, and it's pretty hard on the lower income people. So I might look to try to at least reduce that tax. And both Laura Kelly and Attorney General Smith, who's running for governor, have said that they support either reducing or ending that tax. And so that could be something that comes up in the legislature this year, and we might be able to reduce that tax. And we do have a pretty big surplus of money. Obviously, we do have to be able to balance the budget. We don't want to you know, do what we did in the Brownback years and cut taxes so much that we have a huge deficit, but we do have a pretty big surplus, and so we might be able to, since we have that surplus, cut taxes and, you know, still be able to balance our budget and everything.
Carolyn, had a
Carol's
question.
got it.
Yeah. I would have some concerns on how a bill like that might be written, such that the state doesn't have any determination of withdrawing local taxes, even on groceries.
Yeah, I
We
haven't,
might be the poster child in the state for how local sales tax makes our grocery store feasible. And so,
I
you know,
haven't heard anything about the state telling the counties that they can. I think it'd just be a reduction in the state rate as far as
well, when I hear the talk about 10% sales tax is what some, you know, places are paying, it suggests to me that's the state sales tax of 6.5%, in addition to whatever local taxes are levied. And so I would have a lot of concern with the idea that they have the authority to negate our local city sales tax, because that's what we're depending on as a TIF to repay the debt for the next 17 years.
I don't necessarily.
And that would also take, I mean, just from that one business, would probably take another $35,000, $37,000 away from this county's budget. So I would just be very interested in I mean, it could have unintended negative consequences specifically in Stafford County.
I think when people make that point, I don't think they're necessarily saying that the state should prevent the local governments from having sales tax. I think they're just making the point that when you have the state tax and the local tax, it's extremely high, and so that we should at least reduce the state tax, make that overall rate lower. I think that's kind of the point that people make with that. Not that the state should actually prevent the counties from having sales tax on food. I think that's kind of where it's coming from, and just because the overall rate is so high that we should try to reduce the state rate. I haven't heard of any proposals to prevent the counties from having a sales tax on food, as far as I know. It would just be to reduce the state rate, I
I don't know
believe.
that they can mess with the county rate.
Did you say the state?
But I think when you consider that sales tax is remitted to the state before it is brought back to the you know, local entities, to me it would be, it's not outside the realm of possibility that they're addressing all of that tax. I don't know, you know, but local taxes are made, the authority for local governments to levy taxes is made legal by the authority of the state
You're
government,
basically
if I'm not
saying,
mistaken.
worst case scenario, the state would pass something saying there's an across the board 2.5% cut, for instance, to where it would just be proportionate to, if we were at 10% with state tax and local tax, it'd just be 2.5% cutting off of everybody, and then, you know, I don't think.
Or that they just say, oh, sales taxes, or, you know, groceries are exempt from sales tax, period. That's our biggest source of
I think it would,
county sales tax
I think it would
in the
just be
county.
exempt at the state level.
The state probably has the authority to, I mean, they
Would
do.
home rural power come in there
We
though, with
exempt
local
certain things
taxes?
from sales tax all the
See?
time. There's a whole list of things.
And you've established a TIF district.
At least when I talk about it, I'm just talking about the state tax, not the local.
I know,
Would we be
even
grandfathered
if
in
you
on
are,
this
just
deal?
let's
Yeah.
make sure that everybody is.
Like if you've established a TIF district to gather or collect a tax in that TIF district, would it matter what they passed at a state level? If,
It's a good question.
I don't know.
I don't
But it also begs the question, what does this do to, you know, City of Stafford's budget, City of St. John's budget, you know?
There would be
Again, coming back to the Kent, when you count both towns, it's another, probably, I mean, I'm guessing, I know a portion of it, I don't know the entire, but it's probably easily 70,000 a year that the county's collecting in that 1%
Well, if nobody's bringing that
sales
up
tax.
yet to Brett, I mean, Brett really can't do anything about it until they bring it up. And I think
Right.
Brett understands what we're
Laura-
saying.
I guess Laura Kelly came up with a specific proposal on that, and you know, she hadn't been talking about it at all, but I think from my perspective it's all political, but I haven't looked at her proposal to see if it's just to end the state sales tax on food or if she actually wants to prohibit the counties from collecting sales tax on food. I thought it was probably the state, but I could look at it closer and see what her proposal is on that.
And it's just the sales tax on food, the rest of the sales tax will stay?
Yeah, and it's just like groceries, you know, it's not food at restaurants, or it's not like junk food, like candy, it's
At the
just.
convenience stores.
Yeah.
It's actual junk food at the grocery store.
Lettuce, meat, potatoes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's your
exactly.
basic food, yeah.
Yeah.
Home Rule Authority has come up here. Is there any changes in that? There was some time, a couple of years ago, they were talking about how they were gonna revise the Home Rule Authority. You know, have you heard anything about that, or?
No, could you explain a little bit more exactly what you're referring to?
Well, it was at a KAC meeting 3 years ago or something, that there was some rumblings about where they were gonna change the Home Rule Authority and take it away from the county, and, you know, then the state would govern everything that was going on.
Oh,
That's not been brought up.
Huh?
That's not been brought up since then.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about that.
What about the revenue neutral rate?
Yeah, I was getting ready to bring that up. What can we do to get rid of that?
That needs to be reworked. Because every year the school districts are gonna have to hold a hearing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
they're
gonna
legal.
cost them money.
Yeah, they're legally
There's-
obligated to levy so much for their general fund.
20 mils.
Yeah, 20 mils, and when they levy that, it automatically puts them out of compliance with revenue neutral rate, so they have to hold a hearing. So they're legally obligated to exceed the revenue neutral rate every single year.
Yeah,
It's
that totally
silly.
needs to be.
And then we have some townships that, whether they don't understand it or they just have to go over, some of them are going over just a minute amount to where then they have to have a revenue neutral rate.
Same way with these
Yeah.
small cemeteries.
And then it's gonna affect us. I
It's-
mean, Nita, like, are you still thinking if everything keeps going through a year from now, we're gonna have to look at some more help in your office to send out all of the mailers?
Oh, yeah. I'll
I
have
mean,
to
we're
have more
talking-
staff.
We did,
We're
we
talking a
included
staff member
provision.
just to send out mailers.
We included the provision in the bill, at least to reimburse the counties for all the expenses for a year or two. I think we ought to make that permanent, you know, if we're gonna force all that on the counties, it at least should be reimbursed, you know, so that it's not a.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that. It's a big
I
hardship.
agree with that. I mean, if they want to put in rules that take a lot of manpower and womanpower, they ought to pay for it,
Yeah,
reimburse us for it.
yeah, and I think they're reimbursed for 2 years, but ought to just make that permanent if they're gonna, you know, put that in place on the counties.
Yeah,
I guess from your perspective, you know, maybe one good thing about the bill from your perspective is that it at least did away with the property tax lid.
The lid,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
yeah. That if you have a big,
But it kind of
Project or something,
handcuffs us. I mean, it's the state trying to tell us what to do with our money, and the state can't handle their own money, so why are they telling these guys you have to, you know, stay below that revenue neutral rate? That's my whole
Yeah.
beef with it.
But I do kind of like it because every taxpayer thinks that the county gets every bit of property taxes that we gather. And they don't realize that a lot of that goes to school, a lot of it goes to cemetery boards. And so at least now, because I know in the past when you guys have cut property taxes before I was on there, I think the county cut it 17% and the schools basically took that up.
Yeah,
And so nobody realized the county kept property taxes.
Yeah,
So I mean, at least now, they know where their property taxes is coming, or going to.
and I
Yeah.
guess that's kind of the point of it, is just
yeah,
that
transparency, yeah, and I get that part of it, and I actually don't mind, I'm like Todd, I don't mind the transparency part of it, and knowing exactly who's raising and what's going on. There's a bit of a redundancy issue that I see, where you could own land in a township, and they could raise, and we could lower, and they would still, you know, they would get a letter saying their taxes went up, negative letter, but we went down at a county level. To me, it's redundant, and then you get a letter every year from your school, so your school board members are, you know, it's already hard enough to find people willing to run for school board, and then every person in the county is gonna get a letter, or every person in that district will get a letter saying, hey, the the school raised their revenue neutral rate again this year when they were legally obligated to. It's just kind of there's a bit of a redundancy in the guts of it that I don't necessarily mind the broad aspect of what they're trying to do, because there is some added transparency. And if you had a big project that you had to try to fund, you're not dealing with that tax lid. But there's some guts to it, and then the mailer deal is, the amount of work and
Right, yeah.
money that it's gonna take to do it
Yeah, I
is,
think it should at least be reimbursed, but,
Yeah.
maybe we could look at making some changes to it. I haven't heard that it's gonna. come
yeah,
up again.
maybe they'll make some changes to, I would hope that some of these bigger counties, I mean, this is gonna cost them hundreds of thousands to millions to mail out all this stuff, Sedgwick County.
Big
I mean, you would think, hopefully, they would see this and go, all right, we need to make a change on who we're notifying and how many times we're notifying them, or maybe put all of your notifications into one mailer to where the city doesn't mail one out, and the county doesn't mail one out, and the township doesn't mail one out, and your cemetery board doesn't mail one
I
out.
don't know how you get all that in one mailer.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
All the stuff that we have to put on that mailer, I don't think you could do it
Yeah,
for multiples and not have it be so that they would understand what they're getting
yeah,
from what I've seen.
yeah.
It's tough because, when I ran for office, a lot of people brought up property taxes, as their kind of number one issue and concern, and you kind of want to do something to help them, but it's hard to know if this is the right solution, and it is a lot more paperwork and a burden on counties. But, it's hard to know what the right solution is, but maybe it could at least be reworked, but I haven't heard that it is going to come up.
It sure needs to for those schools, because every year they're gonna have to do it with that general fund.
Yeah, I think it'll become
Because by
redundant.
law, they get 20 mills, but their revenue neutral rate's 18.15. They're always gonna have to have a hearing so they can have that 20 mills, and that's
Yeah.
just silly.
Yeah.
And we can't be the only one. I mean,
No,
there's gotta be a lot of little schools that,
every school's
in
gonna
that.
have to have it. I
Yeah.
mean, you get your 20 mills. To get your 20 mills, you're gonna have to have a revenue neutral rate hearing, which is gonna cost you money, which is, it just doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
And these little cemeteries that levy less than 1 mil, I had 2 of them had to have to have a hearing because they were going over their .249, just to function. It's
Yeah.
like, this is
and a
just
lot of the
silly.
problem, I can see it, 4 years from now, you're gonna be getting so many revenue neutral rate letters in the mail that you're not even gonna open them up.
Well,
You're gonna throw them
yeah.
right, you're gonna see it and recognize it and
You're
throw
gonna
it right
throw
in
it
the
away.
trash.
I mean,
You're
yeah,
not gonna read it.
no,
And none of that cannot be already found.
Yeah,
If you look
Right.
for it.
yeah,
it's there. If they would come to the budget hearings, if they would pay attention to what's published in the papers, they would know. But they don't, but now we have to mail them something that they can throw in the trash.
yeah.
Makes 0 sense, but.
You
that's
said
why
when you got elected that you had a lot of people contact you about property taxes, and that was a
We're
big
not
deal.
running,
And we went down to Liberal to what was that, KAC?
Your commissioner meeting.
Commissioner meeting. And it was a really good conference, and we had a breakout session and talked with a lot of the other counties that are our size. And I thought it really went well and was very informational. And there's a lot of smaller counties. One of them said that they were really in bad shape because everybody was upset about paying property taxes, and so they cut their property taxes down. And he said, now we've got 20-year-old machinery on the road department. We can't keep people hired, and they're gonna have to make a huge jump to replace the equipment they've got. And I mean, there was a couple other counties that had started hiring out their ambulance service, to contractors. And they basically said, your first couple years really looks good on that. And then once you sell all your equipment and you don't have any employees, then your contracts start looking really bad. But I mean, I guess people need to realize, I don't feel like the county wastes any of our money. I mean, if people want to cut property taxes, I mean, what services do you want to give up? I mean, on the sheriff or the ambulance, or I would say Stafford County has some of the best roads around. Go drive in the counties around us. But I mean, I don't know.
Or maybe they dispute as being an unfair tax, maybe they'd rather see a higher sales or income tax, I don't know, but I think a lot of people just think, property taxes, hit landowners, farmers disproportionately hard, and, that just seems like people complain about property taxes to me a lot more than they complain about income or.
It's getting ready to get worse in your district. Are you aware of the soil changes that we're gonna see here in the next, when does that come into effect, Anita?
I think it's January 1, isn't it?
Yeah, it's January 1,
Okay.
so you'll be paying tax, you know, a year from now, but we're changing several soil types. And
You know about
it's
soil
going to
types.
it's going to affect about 100,000 acres, I believe 96,000 acres
Yeah.
in Stafford County.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
And it's really, we did talk with Carl and Carl talked to PVD and they're gonna prorate it over a 7-year period and not just slam us all with one. But there's some irrigated circles that will double over a 7-year period.
Yeah, well, I mean, usually with the change in soil types, you know, usually you'll see some of it go up and, you know, some of the
Yeah, these are all going up. Yeah.
They're taking Carlisle clay and I think 3 or 4 other soil types and combining them into one, and this one is higher than any of our right
Yeah,
now.
6330 is the one that we're going to. If you have 6330, watch out because,
I still think you ought to go to Topeka and fight that.
yeah. Carl claims,
Don't quit.
yeah, Carl claims that there's nothing we can do, that they're
I'd still let him hear
set and convinced, but that we've been wrong this whole time, that the soils have been miscategorized for so many years and now this is gonna make it right, but man, it seems tough. I'm just glad that they're doing it over a 7-year period, you know, prorating it up instead of slamming us.
Some of it could double over 7 years.
Yeah, there's gonna be some circles, he ran some scenarios with me just right here around St. John. There's some circles in northwest Stafford County that'll double. So, yeah, and the bad thing is that a lot of people will get their property tax statement and think that we did something, you know, at this desk to do that, or you did something at your desk to do that, and we have literally nothing to say about it or to do about it.
And you're thinking that all the ground will go up, or at least the vast majority?
96,000 acres will go up. I don't know what percent of the county. We got 22 townships.
Carl would be a really good one to talk to about that.
Yeah, go talk to
If you want to get more informed on that.
We got 500,000 acres in Stafford County, so 20% will be negatively affected. Nobody's taxes are going down with this.
But we as county commissioners aren't doing that.
No.
Right, yeah. and people-
It's the PDD.
Yeah, people will
Called
think they are.
PDD.
Yep.
I would encourage you guys to keep pushing Carl to do something about that, because I had it lined up that Mr. Ham's nephew would go down there and tell him how crazy that was.
Yeah.
And we could still do that.
I wouldn't be against it. I mean, it's,
Squeaky wheel gets the grease if you go down there and complain.
yeah. It might fall on deaf ears, I know. Dudry and several of those guys tried real hard to keep it from going on in southeast Stafford County several years ago, and it fell on deaf ears.
They weren't very well represented.
Yeah,
It's the guy that represented him called me the day before and wanted to know what was going on. That's how much clue he had.
yeah,
You're not gonna get anywhere unless you have somebody that knows what they're talking about.
yeah. Well, we're gonna hopefully have an informational meeting about it. I think a lot of guys don't know about it. A lot of landowners don't know about it. So we're gonna have, Carl's putting something together, hopefully. We know who's gonna be affected, and we're gonna hopefully get the word out to them and then have an informational meeting, and maybe we'll stir up something with that and get a group together and go complain about it. Well, thanks for
I know
coming
I'm a
in.
guest here. May I make a comment?
Yeah,
One of the things that I see kind of before the Kansas, before the Kansas government, including the legislature, is the dissemination of ARPA funds, which I know that the Spark, now ARPA committee has been having some hearings on this. I presented in Wichita's listening session about 2 weeks ago. Here's the thing, this is the discretionary funding, and I think it totals about $4 billion that's gonna be disseminated. And my concern is that they give some emphasis to rural areas in that dissemination. One of the points that I tried to make in this testimony was that so many of the ARPA funds that have already been disseminated have been done on a per capita basis. So places like Sedgwick County have gotten 130 million, whereas Stafford County got less than 1 million. We don't have enough to do even one strategic project with that kind of funding. And if they don't put some equalizing kind of emphasis such that rural areas really can compete well to get some of that funding, my concern is that the whole thing is gonna just widen the gap between urban and rural. And I'm not sure I had a panel that was listening to that very well. Every single one of the people on the panel was an urban representative, and I was the only one coming to that Wichita hearing outside of the Wichita area.
Yeah.
So, of course, I have very much in mind the project that we are trying, to present for infrastructure in Stafford County. I think there's a broader issue to be focused on here, but at minimum, if we can kind of put some consolidated effort toward getting the project that we have that's eligible funded, that would be really helpful. So.
And there's no rural representatives on the Spark Committee either?
None that are specifically rural. So looking,
They go
it
there and
includes.
it's after hours. Because I don't think Philip's giving them the key.
Well, it's David Toland,
A lot of fuel for a month for ambulances.
John Rolfs, Ty Masterson, Bill Pickert, Ron Reichman, Greg Orman, and I think they've replaced the Angela Burns Wallace, but I'm not entirely sure about that. But none of them specifically represent a
Probably
rural area.
Stafford.
So
Stafford fills up at Ampride.
I hope that maybe there's some ways that we can kind of work together, because this is a county project, I mean, each of them are also part of our Port Authority board.
Yeah, if there's anything you think I can do, just email me. I'm not sure if there's anything, if I can have any control over that or not, but if you have any suggestions for things I can do, if you want me to bring something up to leadership or whatnot, I'll do that.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Clay, I got one question for you guys.
Yep.
Last year, because of COVID, basically the hospital bill that we presented the year before wasn't even brought up. Do you want to continue to pursue that? The Kansas Hospital Association actually drew that bill up and are neutral on it. They're not going to fight it. Should we bring that up again, the way the statute, Kansas statute reads?
I would think so.
I mean, it was just impossible to do anything like that up there last year.
Yeah.
And that's basically to change the wording into, yeah.
It's not clear.
It's all municipal and county hospitals, not just Stafford County.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
I think we could find a more moderate person to carry that bill and we could get it through, but we need to push a little bit to get people on board with that. But I still think it could be very important to.
I do too.
Okay. Well, I'll see if I can talk to a few people up there. And there's one guy that actually wrote the bill that I think would carry it, so. The Kansas Hospital Association ended up with the final writing of that bill. They wrote it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't see how there could be much opposition to it, but yet
Yeah.
somebody needs to kick them in gear to get them, to get it out of committee and do something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming, Brett.
Yeah, thanks.
Giving us
Thanks,
informed,
Brett.
letting us know what's going on.
Appreciate you coming in.
Have fun.
Yep.
Send us more money.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the November 3rd, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Then moved and second, we adopt the minutes of November 3rd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Let's see.
We need to appoint Melissa Dove and Doris as your special deputy coroners for 2022. I contacted both of them and they will do that again.
I make a motion
We do that
that,
every year.
I make a motion that we approve appoint Melissa Dove and Doris Tompkins to be special deputy coroners for 2022.
Second.
Moved and second, we appoint Melissa Dove and Doris Tompkins as special deputy coroners for 2022. 2022. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
You gonna proclaim?
Yeah, I'm not gonna read this all. Just make a proclamation, a Veterans Day proclamation of 2021 that we observe Veterans Day, which is tomorrow, November the 11th, and which was started in after the World War I, which was 1918. So it doesn't have to be a motion or anything. So, therefore, I, Clayton Grimmett, Chairman of the Stafford County Commission, do hereby call upon all citizens to commend America's veterans in observance with solemn pride on November 11th, 2021 as Veterans Day.
Okay, I think that's
Do we have anything else?
it. I don't think so. Do you have anything?
I would, go ahead.
Huh?
Do you have anything for the board?
No, not right now.
Do you, Rob?
No.
I would like to have a 15-minute executive session with Mike and Rob to discuss non-elected personnel, and then after that, I think we can adjourn because there'll be no action taken.
Okay. Second.
Then moved and seconded, we go into executive session for non-elected personnel for 15 minutes and then we'll adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.